Well, hey, my name is Ryan Earnhardt from CreativeStyleLab.tv, where audio recording is an art form. Today's episode is really a part B of the part 5 of my mixing drums series. So I originally set it to have 7 parts, and this topic is just too good to leave out. It's actually inspired by your questions. The question is what do I do for mixing when the drums were recorded in a small space? How do I get a big sound? How do I get a big room sound out of a small space? And I have pretty much 3 different things you can try, and I'd love to share them with you and also share with you the raw tracks. I set up my drum kit in my control room. It's got 7.5 high foot ceilings, so pretty low ceilings for recording drums. So it really emulates, hopefully, a home studio, and you're welcome to download these tracks and try this stuff out for yourself. In addition to this episode, I'm going to actually be starting a new type of episode called Off Topic. And this will be something that I don't do every week, but as needed, as questions come up. And so for this Off Topic, I'm going to be talking about how to set up your own reverb chamber in detail. This episode, I can only go through it very quickly and show you some results, but you can find out how to do it in the off-topic episode available this week. Here's what we're going to be learning today. Part 1 is going to be on compression. So, what am I looking to do for compression? How in the world is this going to add any fatness or largeness to the sound? Part 2 is adding reverb. So, what am I looking to do when I do add reverbs? How do I make it emulate a larger room sound? And part 3 is really the DIY or do-it-yourself reverb chambers. I'm going to be walking you through a few of the results that I've gotten and also these tracks that I create with my own reverb chambers. I'll be giving you 2 tracks that I've created that you can mix into these tracks as a real tactile reverb. Let's check it out. Okay, so I'm here in the control room. My drum kit is right behind me here. This is where I recorded these drum takes today. So let's pull them up and have a listen. Okay, so here's the tracks laid out in the normal configuration. Let's have a listen. So not bad. I was actually pleasantly surprised at how they came out. Very tight sound. It wasn't horrible. It just didn't have any big room sound. And let me just play for you the room mics that I recorded. They just really didn't work. Okay, the room mics really didn't work. Okay, so it's just not adding any sustain to our snare or the drums itself. It doesn't really add any dimension to the sound. Okay, we do have some kind of like splatty cymbals there. These are just going to give us problems if we were to add compression to really kind of drive the room sound a little bit. So this really isn't giving us what we want out of a room mic. So that was kind of a flop. That's part of what I do is I try things out. So let's pretend that, okay, these we're not going to use, okay? And also, what I noticed is that my normal choice of overhead actually sounded too good. Here is the drums with my usual dual ribbon R88 by AEA. And here's a mono overhead. It's just that AEA has such a huge sound on its own. So for the purpose of our experiment today, I didn't want to teach from a best case scenario because not everybody has that. I'd rather teach from a real world scenario where you're thrown 2 overheads and they sonically don't match up at all because they're different mics, or maybe they're out of phase. Okay, I've had both of those happen. So then you end up having to only use one. Well, now you're down to a mono overhead. And this, I believe, was an AT4040. So it's a very tight, clear sound. It doesn't really add a whole lot of depth to the drums. So in this case, it's meant to be a challenge for the experiment. So the first method that I would try to really add in some largeness to this sound is by adding compression to this overhead. Just have a listen just on its own, and then in just a moment I'll plug it into the compressors, and we'll have a listen to what compression will really do for bringing out the largeness of the room sound. Okay, so there's a little bit of room sound in there. Let's see what the compressors can do with this. Okay, so I have the mono overhead piped into this Warm Audio WA76 here. And then just for fun, I'm going to do kind of a serial compression here. So one right after the other. And we'll just get a chance to kind of compare the two. I figured, hey, what the heck? So let's check it out. Yeah, so tons of sustain out of the drums. It's almost like we're adding in some reverb. Okay, not really, but it really has that same effect, okay? We're able to kind of call out the sound of the room by adding compression. We're suppressing the transients and allowing the sustain through. Let me set this back here to some kind of reasonable setting here that I had before. Let's see here. Okay, so that's kind of a pretty aggressive sound. It may be too aggressive for a final mix, but I am just trying to prove a point here. Okay, you know, it's a 4-to-1 ratio, very fast release and very slow attack. So those are my settings here. Now what I'm going to do is actually, instead of going into this compressor, I'm going to go into this one, straight into this one. And let's see what this sounds like. Same settings, but a little bit less reduction on each one. So they're kind of sharing the load here. And let's see what that sounds like. So yeah, these compressors just really, I think, make compressing a lot easier. This definitely sounds smoother than just having one do all the work, but either way, it's a really cool sound if that's the kind of sound that you're going for. So if it turns out we didn't like the sound that compression gave us, then we can just add some reverb on its own. By manually adding in reverb, we can simulate the sound of a room mic. So what I've done here is I've went ahead and created an auxiliary track in my DAW here, just called Verb. I put this UAD EMT250 on it. I set it to something short. Maybe even shorter than that, right? Kind of muddy. Take the highs down, a little bit of pre-delay. It's set to all wet. So it's 100% effect on this track here. Then what I'm doing is just sending different tracks from the drums to this effect here. So it's sending to this 48 verb, 48 verb, 48 verb right here. And so I have a little bit of snare, a little bit of snare bottom, high tom, and low tom. And then from here, I'm just going to kind of fine tune it. Now, it's kind of a two-part process. You have to kind of control what balance is going in here. Obviously, you want a little more snare than you would, say, the toms. And I think you'd probably want a little more bottom than, say, the top mic on that snare. And then from here, you want to be setting your reverb to be kind of short and kind of dull sounding, so it fills out the fullness of the drums. And this is just my approach. I've seen people, they take it up to like 2 seconds. But for me, I like the verb to kind of hug onto the drums and kind of get more involved, rather than just kind of ring out and be so long that it just kind of begins to get lost. And so it kind of gets pushed back in the background a little bit. So this way I get a nice short verb that seems to kind of, be right in our face a little bit more. And this is just terms I'm using to describe it. It's not technical at all. But let's kind of tinker with this and have some fun with it. So with this, obviously, you have to set your verb at kind of where you want it. So just like how we were establishing our priority and kind of anchoring tracks for flipping polarity, where we decide a relationship first and then leave those alone and everything references to that. What we really need to do is pick a level for our verb and then leave that alone, and then create a balance among the channels. So let's go ahead and I turned off the verb for the toms, and I'll go ahead and work just on the snare, leaving the fader alone for that verb. So what I'm going to do is I'm having a hard time hearing it and making judgments quickly, so I'm just going to give it a boost just so I can just kind of zoom in a little bit on what I'm doing. And then I'm going to do everything proportionally, and then I'll take it back down. Now, for these toms, I really don't want to go for some crazy, like, 80s or 90s thing, okay? I'm literally just making it sound a little more real. And we could add a touch into that kick just because we're trying to emulate a room mic here that we didn't have in the first place. So that's up to you, but I'm really just focusing on getting a balance here. And I think I pretty much have it. I mean, you know, this takes time and you have to really experiment and do a lot of listening. But let's see how it sounds here. So what I really need to do is, I still have too much high end in this verb. I'm going to go ahead and EQ it some, because it's really not suiting my needs. And so I'm just going to go ahead and very liberally just do what I need to do here. So let's take, actually I really just need two basic functions here. So. I really like that there. It's kind of muddy, but I'm not allowing it to really mud up the real low end here. Okay, now I'm just compressing it to make sure that it is always able to be heard, but then it enables me to turn it down a little bit. I'm hearing a little funniness, kind of like woodblock kind of sound. I don't know how to describe it, but I really don't like it. I think it's coming out of this snare top here. I'm just going to take that out. Yeah, that cleared it up nicely. Very nice. So I like that. Now it's just a matter of setting an appropriate level, okay? Let's see. So maybe somewhere in there, and I'd probably even go faster on that verb, so tighten it up just a little bit so it hugs the drums a little more. I really dig that, okay? That's great. It hugs the drums, it's kind of dark, it doesn't get in the way of the transients or the low end of the kit, and it sounds like we actually probably had a room there. So the third thing that I would try, aside from using compression and of course reverb plugins, is really to use real spaces and really get real performances from those spaces. And this is just a DIY, do-it-yourself reverb chamber. I've done this several times here at the studio between the lounge and the live room, and it's a great way to add depth to anything that is just very small. I've done this a lot for acoustic guitar tracks where I just wasn't able to get a room sound, or maybe it was a direct box kind of situation, and the sound was so flat. But because of the reverb chamber, even in the live room, I was able to really add a lot of three-dimensional depth. This is really just setting up a monitor in a specific room of your house or recording space or even a stairwell, and then having a means to record the result of that. You want to solo the snare track and play it into that space, and then record all the way through it with no interruptions. And then you basically are ended up with a 100% reverb, 100% wet effects track. And this track can be mixed into your mix. For further instruction on how to exactly do this, I'm creating an off-topic episode on the steps of how to create a DIY reverb chamber. Now for today, you can download these two performances. I have a lounge and I have a live room reverb chamber performance that we're going to be using. So let's check it out and let's add some compression to this reverb chamber just to kind of toy with the sound and see how it works with our mix. These tracks here are the product of my 2 reverb chambers, and I'm giving you 2 of them. Not all of them worked. Some of the mic positions are terrible. I'll show you what they sound like, but I will give you the best out of each room. I have the front lounge, which is like a non-treated concrete floor with windows kind of room, and then the live room, which is really my main tracking room. So let's see here. Let's just have a listen. I want to solo these first. So this was the lounge here. Here's another lounge. So this one worked a lot better. For whatever reason, this one, there's lots of cancellation and just pretty much a lot of weirdness in that track. This one sounds awesome, okay? I want to show you these soloed, and then I'll mix them in and show you how they kind of mix. This was a live room here, kind of up above the studio monitor, about 60 degrees and about 8 feet up. Not bad, but not exactly what we want. This one here was 10 feet out, 10 feet up. This one here was 15 feet out, 5 feet up. Okay, it's just looking straight into that monitor. And this was my favorite, 15 feet out, 5 feet up, but with the monitor was turned around facing the back wall. So I'm going to give you this track and this track here. So let's have a listen to how both of these sound with the drums. And by the way, you'll notice that these sound, I think, really amazing compared to like the synthetic reverb where we're, kind of busting tracks into an aux track. This sounds really good. At least I think. Okay, so, that's a little heavy on the verb, but hey, I want you to hear it. Here is the live room verb, a little tighter, a little darker. Okay, so, really this just is pertaining to snare. If I wanted this even more realistic, I would have put some toms in that monitor as I was performing to the room there and recording it. The biggest kind of weirdness, just because I only did the snare, was when the toms come in, they're still very dry, and then the snare is huge. Yeah, so I'm really happy with this. This is really why I do a lot of my own reverb chambers. Now, the only thing really, because this is a real space, is you can't just make it longer. You could, of course, change the acoustic treatment and tweak it. You could add carpets, things like that. Those are all essential techniques to getting great sounds, and I encourage you to do so. But if you just have a sound and you want a little more very, very quickly, the first thing I would suggest is adding compression and adding a little EQ to shape the sound, because you really have a recorded sound, and so you treat it just like any other track that you have. So let's check it out. We're going to add a little bit of compression, a little bit of EQ to shape this into our mix. So first up is the reverb chamber I made from my lounge, and the top compressor is the left channel, the very bottom compressor is the right channel. Okay, now that really was a bit too long, at least for what I'm looking for. That sounds amazing, but I want something just a little tighter. Let's move on to the live room reverb chamber. So I'm really liking how this sounds so far. I'm really not even pushing these compressors that hard. But I think that's really all it needs is just a little bit of compression to help it sit well in the mix. So what I'd also like to do with this is really play these tracks through the eqp-wa by Warm Audio. These things are great. They're just very forgiving. They're very musical. I wouldn't say that I pay much attention to the numbers on the front. I just kind of turn the knobs and use my ears. And so what I'm really looking to do here is just shave off some of the top end and add some thickness. So that's cutting the highs here at about 5K. I'm just going to smooth those out. That's pretty good. I don't want to go overboard with it. So now I'm just going to boost at 800. I really dig what it does at 800. It thickens things. It doesn't make it muddy. It just makes thin things sound more thick and full. Actually, let me try 400 instead. Okay, and of course all of this is just, you find your spot, then you dial it back kind of deal. Okay, so I really think this is a really mixable sound. It's just so forgiving, and if you go a little too far, it doesn't completely destroy the sound. So it's been a lot of fun working with this. Okay, so this is a huge episode. There's a lot going on here, and I hope you have a lot of fun with these raw tracks. Don't forget to download them if you haven't already. It's a unique take made in the control room. So this will make actually 4 unique drum takes for this song that you can be playing around with. So let's review real quickly what we covered today. First is we covered compression. Really, it's going to be bringing out any ambience that's there. And you may be surprised, maybe there's something there that'll help just kind of fatten up the sound just a little bit. Second, we talked about how to add reverb and really how to use EQ on a short reverb to get really a more realistic sound. It's not really some, powerhouse chick vocal reverb or some like Enya or Whitney Houston reverb from the 90s. This is just a short, kind of dark reverb that just kind of adds a nice kind of tail to our snare drum. And really, part 3 was just showing you a little bit about what you can do with your do-it-yourself reverb chambers. And don't forget to check out the off-topic episode on how to do that in detail. I'll see you guys next week.